Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to present the lesson on the general ledger of posting of the CRJ to the ledger. My name is Mrs. Olivier. So if you give me attention for another 5 minutes, then you will know what's going on. Number one, things to remember when we post to the ledger. Number one, the general ledger has two sections. A balance sheet account sections that consists out of your owner's equity, assets and liabilities, and a nominal account section that's your incomes and expenses. So if we look at our balance sheet account section, it is our capital and our drawings, that is our owner's equity. Then it's our assets part that consists out of our fixed assets, that is land and buildings, vehicles and equipment, and then our current assets, that is our bank, our cash float and our petty cash. And first of all, that gets included later this year, our liabilities, that is our bank overdrafts and the creditors that we're going to look at later this year. If we're going to look at our nominal accounts, you must remember the nominal accounts is used to determine the profit of the business, and normally it is consists out of our incomes and our expenses. So these accounts will normally be the current account, or then the sales in this case, rent, commission income, interest on current account, and then our expenses, that is water and electricity consumables, etc., as well as our cost of sales. The next thing that you must remember that we have two sides to a general ledger. First of all, the debit side, that's your year, month, day, details, folio, and your amount. And then your credit side that looks exactly the same. And if you post to the ledger, you must always remember the double entry principle that says for every debit, there's a credit. Another thing to remember is that our assets will always increase on the debit side and decrease on our credit side. Our owner's equity will decrease on the debit side and increase on the credit side. Our credit side will consist out of capitals and income, and our debit side out of expenses and drawings. And then we have our liabilities that increase on the credit side and decrease on the debit side. Now, with your knowledge that you had from last year, we know that the most important column in a CPJ is bank. Bank is an asset. If we pay money, it will decrease. That's why it is debited. And then all the other accounts will the bank will be credited, and all the other accounts will be debited. For instance, telephone, that is the expense that decrease your owner's equity, or equipment, that is an asset that will increase your assets. So let's look at an example. So this is a very small CPJ that we can look at. So the first thing that you must remember, that bank equals all the other columns. So if we say 22,000 plus the 3,000 plus the 156,250, it will again give us the 181,250. The next thing that is important is that we must remember the dates, especially when we post the sundry accounts. Remember that the sundry accounts is going to be posted to the general ledger separately because it's transactions that do not happen so often. And the next thing that we must remember is the folio number. That is also going to be important when we post to the ledger. So let's see again if we can apply the rule. Bank is an asset that decreases, so it is credited. So all the other accounts will be then debited. So let's see how this looks when we post it to the ledger. We look here, the first thing is bank on the 31st, we write total payments out of the CPJ, and we use the total, the 181,250. Then we start posting the different columns. The first column that we had was trading stock. Bank is credited, so trading stock will be debited. And the reason why we write the 31st now is because the 31st is it is a column and it is the last day of the month, and that's why we write 31st. Why do we write bank? Because that 22,000 Rand is included in the 181,250. So bank is credited and trading stock is debited. The next column that we had our wages column. Bank is credited and wages is debited. Again, because it's a column, it's on the 31st. Bank, that 3,000 Rand is included in the 181,250, and it comes from our CPJ. Right, then we start posting the sundry accounts. The first one was drawings. Now look, everything is exactly the same. Bank is still credited and drawings is debited, but now it's on the 4th because we do not have a separate column for drawings. We debit it in our drawings account. The same for land and buildings. Bank is credited, so land and buildings is debited. The same for stationery. Bank is credited, so stationery, the transaction was on the 21st, is debited, and bank charges, bank is credited, so bank charges is debited on the 31st. So what must we remember when we post the CPJ? Number one, the general ledger has two sections, a balance sheet account section and a nominal account section. It also have two sides, debit side and a credit side. The debit side must always equal the credit side, so that will be our double entry method. So if we quickly go back to the previous slide, you will see if we take the 4,000 plus the 150,000 plus the 22,000 plus the 3,000 plus the 1,000 plus the 1,250, it will add up to the 181,250. Right, then in the CPJ, the bank is the most important column. Always remember that. Bank is an asset that decreases. That's why it's credited. So all the other accounts, the rest of the columns will be debited because it's either an expense like telephone, stationery, or wages, or owner's equity like drawings that decreases owner's equity and assets that increase. This is the end of my presentation. So please complete the attendance register. Here's the link to the quiz as well as the QR code. Good luck.